Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Ajit Mayya, the co-founder of Velocloud Networks. And how are you today?
Good, good. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's jump right into some of the questions I'd like to ask you. So, where did you go to college or school, and what was your major in college?
So I did all of my schooling right through undergraduate in Bombay, and I graduated out of IIT Bombay with a bachelor's degree in computer science.
I see. Okay, and so how has your experiences in college impacted your life today?
So I think the first 12 years was pretty routine, but the 5 years that I was there in IIT were definitely very defining because a lot of stress, but a lot of great friendships and a lot of good times. And being put through the rigor definitely gives you a great learning opportunity.
Sure. So the stress helped you mold you into the person.
Yeah, we didn't really think of it much of stress as it was something that had to be done.
Right. Okay.
But when you look back, certainly it was quite a lot of work and quite stressful at times.
Do you think that mindset of having stress be something that just has to be done, or work that just has to be something that has to be done, has helped you in your professional
I think
career?
so, because at the end of the day you realize that there are things that you control, and so you can do something about it, and that helps you deal with the stress. And one shouldn't really stress about things that you cannot control, and that requires a little bit of discipline that you pick up over time. And certainly, I think youngsters sometimes get overly stressed about things, and we all need to figure out a way to deal with it.
Right. And so I'm sure in your professional career there are a lot of tough decisions that had to be made, and with that a lot of stress. So what were the biggest decisions that you had to make during in your life so far?
I think probably one of the big ones was from a professional perspective was leaving Vmware to sort of go found Velocloud Networks. There's a bit of an unknown aspect there where you don't know how things would pan out, but it was something that I really wanted to do, and it required a bit of thought, leaving a job with a great company and then going off and venturing off on your own. But I was fortunate enough to have two co-founders, and I think that's something that really helped me, because you felt that when you were on this journey there were a couple of people that you could talk to and confide with, and you weren't off on your own.
Right. So do you think that ability to have a team with you every step of the way, was that helpful in making a decision too?
I think so. I think there are certainly lots of cases where you have individual founders who are there on their own, and in this case we were three of us. I would recommend at least one other person to be part of the founding team, so that you can really discuss the issues and come to some conclusion as to what the right path would be.
And so what's one nugget of wisdom you would wish to present to your past self right now?
What do you mean by negative wisdom?
Just a nugget of wisdom, a nugget.
Oh, nugget of wisdom. I think most problems are surmountable. So if you put the effort in, you will come to, in most cases, a positive conclusion. So which means that keep plodding away, right? And I always tell the team that a startup or any challenge is like climbing Mount Everest. But if you think of it from base camp, how much you have to climb, that's a very long distance. On the other hand, the way you climb it is one step at a time. And so if you keep putting the effort in, I think usually you will reap the benefit.
Right. So a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Correct.
Right. And so did you, while growing up, did you have any mentors or significant figures or events that have changed your life?
No official mentors as such, but I would certainly latch myself on to a few people and observe them and see how they did and what they did in different circumstances. And certainly my dad was a hero of mine, and someone that he wouldn't officially mentor me, but I would see what he was doing and how he was doing things, how he was honest in everything that he did, and how hard he worked. And certainly, I have to give a lot of credit to my mother also. I'm juggling multiple things, teaching in a college and doing her PhD. And similarly at work, I would observe people who were successful, who were very knowledgeable, and then you just learn by observing. But at the same time, it's probably a good idea to get some official mentorships, because these days it's a well-recognized thing, and people are more than happy to volunteer their time if you gather up the courage to go and ask them.
And so do you think having someone to look up to, or having someone who's you aspire to be, is that important while growing up, or at any point in your life?
I think so, because that really helps you stretch yourself. So it can be inspirational. So you look at it and say, wow, that was pretty amazing, and maybe I could do something similar, or maybe it's not the same thing, and it could be a different dimension. But you see people pushing and stretching, and that helps you also reach out and do more than you think you can.
And so what are some of the hardest things you have had to deal with, and how did you deal with them?
That's a tough question. I think there were many times when I would say that you're trying to get something done, and whether it's a software release, it seems something that you cannot accomplish, at least in the given time. But then you realize that the more important thing is to sort of do it right and not rush things out, especially when you're dealing with high tech and you're dealing with a product that customers will have, that they would rather have it be a little late than it be incorrect or wrong or buggy. So you always have to try and figure out what is the right thing, and just stay the course.
And so how do you in general deal with failure?
That's another good question. I think the important thing is to sort of probably not let it get to you. Right? It should not demotivate you in any way. So, which sort of gets into the question of also, what is failure?
Right.
Just because you tried something and it didn't work out exactly as you planned, is that classified as a failure? I would say not, right? Say you were running a 800-meter race, and just because you put your best into it and came in, say, fourth, that doesn't mean that's a failure. So I think one has to look at things in perspective and try and do the right thing, and not worry too much if you didn't get exactly what you wanted.
Right. Okay. And how do you deal with burnout if you're not able to, muster up enough motivation for yourself? How do you deal with burnout then?
So I think this goes back to looking at things on how to tackle the problem. And if you feel that you're putting your best effort and you put your best foot forward, then you just have to deal with the rate of progress, and at the same time try and find a balance. It's a lot easier when you're single than when you're married, and when you're married with kids, because then you have to force yourself to make sure that you don't ignore the rest of your life, right? And work cannot be the only thing. When you're single, it's a lot more flexible, and so you have to find the right balance, and then hopefully you're able to juggle things. But again, the most important thing is, if things don't work out, don't let it get to you. Don't be disheartened. I always tell people that, is anybody dying? If nobody's dying, then it's okay.
So do you feel that any burnouts in your life have helped you grow?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had like a total burnout as such, right? So that's a question that I probably cannot answer truthfully today.
Sure. Okay. I guess that's a good thing. Then, so when you wake up, what's your morning routine? So how do you start your day?
So usually in the mornings, it's on weekdays, it's a little crazy, because there's everybody's awake and trying to get to school and work and whatnot.
Sure.
So that's a very tough time, but the way I get ready for the day is really, the drive time that I have, which can vary from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, where I try and think through about what I want to get done for the day. And if for some reason I don't have that time, when I get to work, I'll sit down and make a few notes. And that's really important because, you say, okay, this is what I need to get done today and the most important thing. And then, it really helps you prioritize your time, because usually there isn't time to do everything that you want to do.
Right. And so do you think that you should be able to be, in your field especially, time management I'm sure is very important. So do you think more teens or more people need to get better at time management? Is that a skill that's going to be?
Yes, I think time management is, one is never taught that. And one has to sort of pick it up. Hopefully someone tells you how to do it. But this is, it doesn't, it's hard to pinpoint exactly when it starts. Probably middle school onwards, even children need to figure out a way to manage their time. And certainly you need that for your adult life and work and whatnot, because there's just never enough time to do everything, and there's lots of distractions during the day. So sometimes your whole day could be short because you wanted to do one thing, and no matter how much you planned, especially the more senior you get, your time is never under your control. There could be a crisis that takes over and consumes you. So how do you sort of get things back on track?
Right.
And that always requires planning and prioritizing, which is all about time management at the end of the day.
And so speaking of teaching and children, so what is your advice to the next generation for a meaningful life?
So, each person has to define success for themselves, and success cannot be a selfish thing. So I would say that think through all of the aspects and the people who you care about and define it in that context, and never compare yourself to what somebody else is doing, because each is right in its own way, and what's important for you may not be important for someone else. But one shouldn't define one's success based on what one sees someone else doing. So you have to define it for yourself and then do your best to try and achieve it, but make sure you you involve your family and friends and take that into consideration. Don't be selfish.
Right. And so what is your next big goal now that you've sold Velocloud? What is your next big step in your life?
So for me, I've been thinking a little bit about that. So the two kids are 16 and 13. So they are getting to a stage in their lives where they're going to have to make some big decisions, especially Armina. Now she'll have college in a couple of years. So I feel that I'm trying to balance things where I am able to work with her and see what are the kinds of things that she cares about and help her with that. Because in a couple of years she'll be in college just like you.
And so now as an entrepreneur who started Velocloud, so what do you think, what do you need to be successful? What do you need to be a successful entrepreneur? What qualities are needed?
So again, there you have to know what you want, because when you're an entrepreneur and you're a founder, and hopefully you have a co-founder with you, it's very unclear what the next step might be. You might have an end goal that is defined, which might change over time, but it may not be clear exactly how to get there. And so, but knowing what you want is at any given point is really important. And then you can sort of try and slice and dice it and put together a plan on how you're going to accomplish that.
Right. And so for my final question, going back to how you grew up in India and in Bombay was your college life. So what do you think was the impact of being an immigrant in your professional life here in the United States?
So I think Silicon Valley is very accepting, and certainly more so of late than it was when I first came in '87. Things were different then. Now I think people recognize that a smart person is a smart person. Doesn't matter whether they're an immigrant or not. Certainly one has to hustle
Right.
So I think over time, and especially, I think the days in IIT helped a lot because you have to hustle to get things done,
Sure.
and then as an immigrant in a new place, you probably have to have a little bit of that, and certainly as an entrepreneur, you need a bit of that, right? So, which means that you have to know when to be aggressive and when to make sure that things happen the way you want them to happen.
Right.
So there's always a bit of urgency, which means that whenever you do something, you have to have some kind of a time frame in mind, if it is really important. So for example, you could say, "Oh, I need to read this book," and it may be whenever you get the time. But if you say you want to get a certain product out by to a certain market, you better know by when you need to get it done. So schedules are really important for the top priority things, and for the others, it'll happen when it happens.
And so that hustle that you get from being an immigrant, I guess, that helped you?
I think that's certainly one aspect. I don't know if it's the most important thing, but I think when you have to push and to get things done, that certainly brings out the best in people, rather than a totally laid-back approach. Not that that is wrong.
Right. Slow and steady.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. And so do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to add?
No, good luck with the project. I think it's pretty exciting what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks.